If you're listening to this podcast, it's probably because a child you love and care for is differently wired. Are they also struggling in their current educational setting, seen only for what they're doing wrong while longing for positive relationships with peers and others? Envision a world where your child's unique abilities are not just recognized, but celebrated. A world where they can connect with others and their true potential is seen and appreciated. The Strength-Based Assessment Lab's mission is to build a world for your child just like that. Through its innovative approach, it aims to empower students, families, educators, and professionals to create positive, effective, and collaborative learning experiences. Be a part of shaping a brighter future for your child. Visit www.bgs.edu to learn more about what a strength-based assessment could mean for your family. That's bgs.edu.
At home, with medication, with a therapist, she usually has 2 to 3, maybe 4 significant meltdowns a week because of anxiety. When we got out there in the woods, in that 6 weeks, she had 1 partial meltdown, and that was all.
Welcome to the Tilt Parenting Podcast, a podcast featuring interviews and conversations aimed at inspiring, informing, and supporting parents raising differently wired kids. I'm your host, Debbie Reber, and today we're talking with Jill Emmelhainz, the mother of a 14-year-old daughter with anxiety who's taken extraordinary measures to support her daughter. Last year, Jill and her daughter have gone on extended hiking expeditions on the Appalachian Trail, the longest hiking-only footpath in the world that extends all the way from Maine to Georgia in the eastern United States. Jill's story is fascinating, but perhaps what I love most about our conversation is that Jill offers a beautiful example of what it looks like when a parent commits to becoming fluent in their child's unique language and adapts their life to create experiences to help their child thrive. This is not to say that parents should pull their kid out of school, stock up on camping supplies, and hit the trail, but I do think it's really inspiring to consider how we as parents can creatively figure out ways to meet our children where they're at in a powerful way. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Tilt Parenting Podcast. To learn more about Tilt, visit www.tiltparenting.com. Hey everyone, this is Debbie Reber with the Tilt Parenting Podcast, and today I'm happy to welcome to the show Jill Emmelhainz.
Hi, Debbie.
I've been really looking forward to speaking with you ever since I was kind of looking back at our correspondence, and I think you filled out my podcast suggestion form back when I very first launched Tilt. And in that note to me, you wrote that you thought we should explore the topic of the significance of outdoor time for our kids. And specifically what you wrote was, we work hard to add this to daily life for our daughter. And later this week, she and I leave for our second 5-week backpacking trip on the Appalachian Trail, a setting where her debilitating anxiety drops to almost zero. So that message totally piqued my interest. And I know there are lots of listeners raising children who struggle with anxiety. So I definitely wanted to get you on the show. So here you are. And thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, I'm glad to talk.
I'd love if you could just kind of share your story with us. Maybe tell us a little bit about your family and your daughter. I was doing a little, I always do my online research. I know you have several children, but it's your youngest daughter who is 14. That is the one you did the Appalachian Trail with. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, as you said, we've got a big family. We've got 7 kids. And at this point, Anna is the only one still left at home. The rest are grown and on their own. And Anna has had mental health issues that she struggled with, first diagnosed when she was 5. And it's a whole alphabet soup of different diagnoses. But the most significant issue we struggle with is her overwhelming anxiety that causes her at times to shut down. Other times she melts down with, screaming or crying or rages when she's just overwhelmed with all of the sensory chaos that's around her. We've discovered that from when she was very young, that when she can be outdoors, that seems to help calm her down. There's less anxiety when she's not around man-made chaos. So that's very often, for her younger years, that just meant she spent a lot of time outdoors in the backyard playing. We tried to spend a lot of time going to playgrounds. But even there's a lot of other kids running around, a lot more chaos. And so we figured out, well, let's try parks, city parks. And so we would go to the park and she could wander the paths, the paved paths in the trees and in the woods. And that was a big help too. But then a year ago in the summer, my husband and I talked about things and we decided to try something kind of radically different. And what would happen if we took an extended trip, as you said, took an 5-week backpacking trip, living in the woods, and just see what that would do for her.
That sounds like a huge adventure. And so you came up with that idea. How did that go in terms of talking with your daughter about it? And I'm curious what her response was.
Well, first I knew it was a dream of mine from the time I was in high school. So for me, this was not some big sacrificial thing that I was doing. So I could talk about it very excitedly. What we did is we just kind of presented to her, this is what we were doing. We didn't ask if she wanted to. We just said, this is what you and mom are going to be doing this fall. She likes going shopping. So going and buying a whole bunch of gear was great fun to her. And to her, the focus, of course, as a teenager was, can I get it in the color I like? But yes, we got all the gear. And when I had done my research, what I discovered was some people say you need to do all kinds of preparation hikes, but a lot of people say really just start slow when you get to the mountains, because if you don't live in the mountains, you can't really prepare your body for it anyways. And so based on that, I very carefully did not take her on any big, long preparation hikes. My fear was that if it hurt, if she was uncomfortable, that she would decide she was not going to go. So we did one 3-mile hike with only a partial pack, which went really well and she loved it. And then we left and went to the trail. What we told her was, Daddy will pick us back up in 5 weeks at this location further down the trail. So the first few days when she would get frustrated or be really tired and she would be exhausted and be saying, I just want to go home. And I would say, well, here's a snack and let's look at the trees. Let's draw some pictures. And remember, Dad's picking us up in 5 weeks. So we have to get to where he's going to pick us up. Now, my husband and I both had planned ahead of time that if needed, I could call him and he would be there. He would come pick us up within a day. But we just didn't tell her that piece. So after a couple of days of she would like it and then she'd be grumbly and then she would like it. After that, she settled in and she just calmed down and she loved it. So it became a very good experience. For other parents, I think they would have to figure out what would work best for their kid. Anna knew that she loves to be outdoors. So we were just adding a new flavor to being outdoors. For a parent who their kid has really not been outdoors, or that would be a radically different thing, I don't think I would take my approach of just drag her out there. So each parent would need to figure out what would work best with your child. But for us, we figured that if she had a bad experience or a negative one to begin with, that she would likely put her foot down and refuse to even give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we chose the route we did of just taking her out there and let's see what happens.
Well, it sounds like it worked out well for you.
It worked great. We did the actually 6 weeks last fall at home with medication, with a therapist. She usually has 2 to 3, maybe 4 significant meltdowns a week because of anxiety. When we got out there in the woods, in that 6 weeks, she had 1 partial meltdown, and that was all.
That's incredible.
Yes, absolutely transformative. And so that's where my husband and I talked about it once we got back in the fall and kind of said, well, obviously we're going to keep doing this because it brings her so much peace. So as you said in the intro, she and I completed another 5 weeks of hiking this spring and had a similar result, that she did not have anxiety when she was hiking.
So I have so many questions, not sure where to start. I mean, I guess I want to go back, but before I do that, I'm just curious, have there been kind of a long-term effect? So while you're outdoors, you're having this kind of meltdown-free experience. Is there a residual effect of that when you get back to the quote-unquote real world?
Maybe for a very short time. The bigger thing that it has done is she now has an experience to be able to process and compare life in the real world to what it's like there. And so you know how one of the techniques that they'll often use with somebody with anxiety is to say, try to think of your happy thoughts or your happy place, try to take deep breaths. There's all these techniques. And for her, they really didn't connect. But now that she's had that time in the woods, I can intervene and say, sweetie, seems like you've got some high anxiety. Can you close your eyes and just take some deep breaths and think about as if you were walking on the Appalachian Trail? See if you can bring yourself back to feeling like what that was like. And not always, but a lot of times that is an effective intervention. It still takes me intervening and it takes her doing the work. The anxiety is there, but it brings it down faster in a way that she couldn't do before we did the hiking.
Wow. It's incredible. What a gift to give to her to be able to have that experience.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, let's go back. You mentioned earlier that you noticed that when your daughter was in nature that she seemed to be calmer. And is there any kind of specific memory that you have? I'm just curious when you first noticed that. Do you remember what that was like and kind of making that connection?
When you ask the question, my mind goes to something a little different than your question, which is when she was about 2 years old, we had a fenced-in backyard that was very safe, and we had a dog that had such a long coat that in the winter he didn't come in the house. He stayed outside because otherwise he overheated. And at 2 years old, she would get up in the morning, she'd eat her breakfast, and she would put her own snowsuit on and get out the back door and go be outside with the dog. And eventually I would drag her back in because her poor little lips were turning blue, and I would warm her up. And once she was all warm, she would put her snowsuit back on and she would go back outside. And she was just determined she had to be outside. And that continued once it got to be spring and summer, that she on her own chose to spend whenever possible as much time outside as we would let her. And so I didn't really notice that it helped, but it seemed for her to be more, she demanded it as a necessity for her life.
Yeah, so interesting. I think the younger our children are, the kind of closer they are to being connected to knowing what they need, right? Because they're all about just, the ego or the mind isn't involved. It's just, this is what I need. I'm going to do it now. And that's really interesting that she had that instinct at so young an age.
Yes, it is.
So how about, I'm curious what the experience was like for you. Now, you said that this was not a sacrifice. This was actually something that you were excited to do and have wanted to do. And I'm just wondering, was it challenging for you at times kind of having your space or taking care of yourself during the hike itself?
Not really. The first couple weeks last fall, she insisted she had to be behind me. I had to lead. So that meant she went at my pace, which I am bigger, older, and slower than her. So she would have gone a lot faster, but she was not comfortable on her own, which is I fully understood and supported. But after a couple of weeks, we would in the morning set out, well, this is where we're going to stop for the night. And look here on the map, this is where we're going to try to stop for lunch at the nice overlook or whatever it was. And so after a few weeks, I let her just go ahead of me. And she was, expected to stop at certain spots and wait for me to catch up so we could check in. And what that meant is during those time frames, in between check-ins, I was actually in the woods by myself. But I knew if she had a problem, she was ahead of me and I would catch up to her. When we're at home, another issue related to Anna's anxiety is that she disappears at times into the neighborhood and I have no idea where she is. As a result of that, she is always on my radar, like you would do with a toddler. Where is my child? What are they doing? Are they safe? Once we were out in the woods and I knew she was comfortable and she was ahead of me, that day-to-day, moment-to-moment stress on me was gone. I didn't have to worry about, is she going to disappear? Because she's following the trail. She's following the sign. Me not having to be on guard, on edge every moment was a huge gift for me. And then, of course, I love nature and I can enjoy the view and the birds and, all the different things out there, just like she was doing. That, too, was something enjoyable for me.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about, I'm homeschooling my child. He's going to be 12 in August. And just as you're describing the stress not being there when you're in nature, homeschooling, while it was a really difficult adjustment for both of us, probably more for me, I also don't have that daily stress that I used to experience when I would have to pick them up from school every day and have to kind of deal with the ramifications of whatever happened in school that day. And so having that stress gone has been such a gift for me. So I totally can appreciate that. And also on top of that, you getting to be in nature, which is a happy place for you, sounds like kind of a perfect experience for you two to have together.
Yes, it is. It is an excellent opportunity for us. And as you said earlier, it's a gift to her, but it really, I think, is a gift to me too, that I can have that time, but also it gives us a shared experience that we're not struggling against each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's happy memories and stories that we share together. And far too often for any parent of any child, no matter what the child's situation is, when they get to their teen years, you tend to have a lot more struggles and, they're trying to assert their independence and you're trying to get them safely to adulthood, and there gets to be a lot more struggle. And so this is we still have those struggles, but we also have these shared memories of good experiences together. And that too is a gift.
A lot of my work before I created Tilt has been in the teen girl space and creating projects and writing books that were aimed at helping girls tap into their confidence. I can just imagine that the experience that you have given your daughter by doing these hikes, by her being independent in them, sometimes being out of sight of you and kind of doing her own thing, that's also just hugely boosting for her self-esteem.
It is. It is. The other thing that's really interesting when we're hiking, now, when we take a walk in the city park, we don't get this piece of the experience. But when we're doing that long distance hike, almost all of the other hikers that are out there are adults. But my daughter quickly realized that she is the equal to every person out there because she's carrying the same pack. She's doing the same chores, filtering water, helping to build the campfire, helping to cook, whatever it is. She is equal to an adult out there. And they treat her that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that too is a gift because far too often our kids, they feel like they're being treated as lesser. The adults are the strong ones and the kids are not. And so out there, it gives her a setting. It wasn't a made up setting. It just in that setting, she truly is an equal. And that too, I really think gave her lots more confidence. Yeah, a sense of worth that she is the same and as good as the others that are out there.
And that is not something that every 14-year-old girl feels on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
So that's really cool to hear. Very cool. We'll be right back after this quick break. Darren and I are prepping for a big move at the moment, so we are fully leaning into any and everything that simplifies things, and that absolutely includes mealtimes. At a time when my executive functioning skills are being pushed to the limit, even planning and executing dinner for our family these days can feel like a really big lift. That's why I'm especially grateful for Green Chef, a meal service that offers pre-measured and prepped ingredients to my door. Each box is packed with foods you can feel good about, like whole fruits and vegetables, plus lean protein and whole grain options. In fact, one of the things I love most about Green Chef is that they offer options that prioritize gut and brain health, with science-backed recipes that feature ingredients like fiber, antioxidants, and omega-3 fatty acids. During this time of lots of stress, it feels really grounding to know we're supporting ourselves nutritionally. I will take all the support I can get. And Green Chef doesn't just cover dinner recipes. I can add high-quality breakfasts, lunches, and snacks to my weekly box from Green Market. Green Chef has a special offer for Tilt listeners. Go to greenchef.com/tilt50 and use code TILT50 to get 50% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. That's 50% off plus 20% off your next 2 months when you use the code TILT50 at greenchef.com/tilt50. Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well. Maybe I've watched too many seasons of The Amazing Race, but every time I have to go somewhere on the subway, I treat it like a competition. It's all about making the right gut decisions about which route will get me there the fastest. Sometimes those decisions get me where I'm going early, and other times my gambles don't really pay off. Probiotics can't help with most gut decisions, but if your gut needs a little support, Ritual has your back. Their Symbiotic Plus, a 3-in-1 supplement, has clinically studied prebiotics, probiotics, and a postbiotic to support a balanced gut microbiome. I've been using Symbiotic Plus for about 6 months now, and it's become a core part of my morning routine. I take the mini capsule every morning while making my way through my inbox, whether I'm at home or I'm on the road, because it doesn't need to be refrigerated. And the capsule itself is delayed released, which helps it survive the harsh conditions of the upper GI tract for delivery to the colon, and that's exactly where we want it to go. Ritual invested in a study modeling the human colon, which showed that Symbiotic Plus significantly increased microbial diversity and the growth of beneficial bacteria. There's no more shame in your gut game. Symbiotic Plus and Ritual are here to celebrate, not hide your insides. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/tilt. Start Ritual or add Symbiotic Plus to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/tilt for 25% off. During the hikes themselves, I'm wondering if you could maybe just tell us what a typical day was like. And also, I'm curious if there were any kind of difficult situations that you encountered during one of your hikes that you had to kind of push through.
This spring, we learned we can hike when it's raining every day. That part was not real fun. But on one of the particular days, it was fairly cool and raining all day long. And that happened to be a day that we were actually attempting, and we did succeed at it, but we were attempting the longest day we had ever hiked, which was 16 miles in one day. And that day, the challenge, besides the distance, besides the rain, the challenge was that she had gone way ahead of me, and we had set a place that we were supposed to stop, and we were going to refill water bottles if we needed and have a snack together. And when I got to that place, it was pouring down rain really hard, and she had not stopped. She was not waiting for me. So then I was worried. What was going on with her? Was she okay? I realized it was getting colder and with the wind and being wet. And so I stopped. I put on my rain gear, not as much for the rain, but to keep me warm. And I kept hiking and I kept pushing really hard. And I would hear from other people coming the other direction. Oh yeah, we saw your daughter, 10 minutes ahead, or we saw your daughter a little while ago. She looks okay. And then people started saying, well, she doesn't look very happy. Oh, she doesn't look like she's doing very well. Well, I couldn't get to her. I'm hiking as fast as I can. I can't go any faster. She's not thinking to stop. So finally, somebody came up along behind me and was hiking fairly quickly. And I said to him, if you see my daughter, tell her Mama really needs her to stop and wait. I need her to wait for me. Thinking, well, maybe if she's thinking it's for my purpose, for me. And so maybe 10, 15 minutes later, I did catch up to her. She had gotten the message and she stopped. And she was cold and we made her put on her rain gear. And, she was teary because, she just felt like the rain was never going to stop and she was never going to get to the shelter. And, so again, when you're hiking, you don't have a whole lot of options. So we had bundled back up, but it's warmer to keep walking. And so, I pulled some chocolate out of my backpack. Here, let's have this extra little treat. But that was a day that I felt bad because she was so far ahead of me. When she started kind of getting teary, I wasn't there to help. But then I also think, but she didn't go into full anxiety. She just got teary, and upset because she was tired, but it wasn't an anxiety reaction. And then I also had to process through and say, yeah, but the day is coming, not that many years from now, where Mama's not going to be there to help intervene. One of the things that we are very focused on as a family and with her therapist is trying to build the skills she needs to be able to live independently as an adult and to be able to do her own interventions and do that. And so to some extent, I think that negative, difficult experience became a piece that we've talked about since then of the importance of recognizing what you need and trying to take care of yourself because you need to make those decisions. And so it didn't end badly. It wasn't a tragedy. It wasn't somebody got hurt. It was a challenge. It was difficult, but it became, I think, a real good learning lesson.
Yeah, I can see that being something she reflects on for many years to come. Like you, that is a big, I don't know if it's a concern, but a big goal of ours is to really help Asher learn great life skills so he has what he needs to live successfully as an independent adult. So I'm always kind of happy, inside when adversity strikes or he's in a situation that I know is pushing him outside his comfort zone, especially with regard to his physical comfort, because that's a big issue for him. So it sounds like, I can imagine in that moment how you must have been feeling and that I would have felt a strong urge to almost break into a run to kind of catch up, right? But it sounds like it was exactly the experience that needed to happen. And I love that you've been able to since then reflect on it and talk about it and use it as a great example that, she'll be able to carry with her.
Right.
I wanted to just ask you if you had any thoughts about, just from your personal experience. It sounds like Anna has always been interested in being outside, and that hasn't been a struggle. But I also know from a lot of families, and including our personal experience, that it can be difficult to get some kids interested in spending time outdoors. When we moved to Amsterdam from Seattle, and we have the Cascade Mountains there, and at one point, I think Asher was maybe 8, I decided we are hiking every Sunday. That's our family thing. This is what we do. We pick a trail in the mountains. We get in the Subaru, get the dog, and we go. And that was not met with joy by my child. Like, he was not into it. And nature is my happy place. So it was this constant struggle. And there was a lot of whining and dragging feet. And, somehow, and I'm so thankful for this, somehow we've gotten to a point where Asher loves to be in nature. It took a lot of work and just, I guess, keep getting him outside and trying to make it fun and interesting and helping him focus on what's in nature in a way that engages his mind, which he's like a little science mind. So if I can get him interested in these little aspects of nature biology, then all of a sudden it's great. So I'm wondering, do you have any tips for parents who are also looking to encourage more, whether it's just outdoor time in general or time more deeply immersed in nature?
I think you hit 2 key points in what you just said. And one is, as parents, we have to be convinced that it's really important so that we're willing to continue the struggle and the fight to get our kids outside. Because if we're not convinced of it, we're going to easily be swayed by it's not worth the hassle. It's not worth the fight to get them out there. And the second huge piece is you have to make it fun for them. So with my daughter, when we're out on the trail, some people, they get out there, they hike, and their focus is, I'm going to do 18 and 20 miles every day because my focus is how far can I hike? I've got to get there the longest distance possible. That means long days of walking. For us, that would I really don't think that would work for her. So we do much shorter miles, but then we also, 2 other things we have is when we find stopping spots. So maybe it's a stop for lunch. Maybe it's when we've gotten to where we're going to sleep for the night, but we got there in the middle afternoon. She has time. She loves to do imagination play. And so she has time, just free time, to play in the woods. So she pretends she's that knight or she's the, hero. She has a stick and that's her sword. And she can just engage in play that she enjoys, but she's outside while she's doing it. The second piece of making it fun for her, like you said, for Asher, it's that science, finding the bits of science, that tidbits that he can really focus on. For her, it's more the creative, artistic side. And so it's, can she make up a song as she's walking? Or can she think of songs that she knows and sing them that have something to do with being outdoors? And she came up with an amazing repertoire of, when Mama was tired, she would sing a certain song that, was talking about don't give up, pick yourself up one more time. So music was important for her. We brought along some sketching supplies, which is extra weight in the backpack, but I knew for her and for me that was an enjoyable thing. And so we would sketch a leaf, or, she would draw a little cartoon about what she'd seen or experienced that day. A made-up story about it, what a caterpillar was doing, what was he really saying, things like that. And if for families that want to try to do something like this, I recommend you can find books or you can just go online, and there are all sorts of lists of fun things to do outdoors with your kids. And so when the focus presented to the child is, let's go have fun, let's focus on the fun, and oh, by the way, it's outdoors, they may still object, but once they get there, they're going to be focused on that fun. That's going to help get them over the hump. Another piece that just this past week that I haven't let my daughter try this yet, but I'm wondering, there's this Pokemon Go.
I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah, and I haven't let her do that. We have issues where she then hyper focuses on screen time, and then it's a battle. So we haven't chosen to do that. But for families where their kids are focused on, the screen time, the video games, all of those kinds of things, that comes to mind as the only way Pokemon Go works is you got to be outdoors. You've got, at least you're outdoors in your city, even if you're not out in nature. And, any being outdoors, being out in the sunshine, feeling the wind, seeing the grass, feeling the grass, those things are significant. There's a really significant book. It's called Last Child in the Woods. The author is Richard Louv, Louv. And that particular book, he is just focused on study after study after study that show the significant benefits to humans of being connected to nature. And one of the premises in the book is that one of the reasons that we have this, explosion of kids with all different issues, ADHD, anxiety, autism, like all these different things, that a contributing factor potentially is that they've lost all connection to nature. Not that that causes it, but that that's contributing to the issues. And that was a book I'd read many years ago, and it has just really resonated with Anna as, yes, this is true. And it's an easy read. It makes reference to studies, so it's based on scientific studies, but it's not a heavy-duty academic book. It's meant for parents who are wanting some reinforcement as to why is it that this is important. And so I would urge any families that haven't already discovered it, go find that book.
That's great. I was just going to ask you for favorite resources. So thanks for sharing that. Now, for listeners, I'll leave a link to that in the show notes so you don't have to be writing that down right now. We'll be right back after this quick break. Hey there, it's Debbie. I love making this show and sharing conversations about how to support our awesome neurodivergent kids. I've seen how even one little insight from an interview can spark a big shift in daily life. But I know that raising complex kids can be messy and lonely. And just when we think we figured it out, something comes up that boots us right back to feeling overwhelmed and stuck. That's why I've poured everything into creating a way for parents like us navigating complex parenting journeys to join together and chart a path that feels positive, hopeful, and doable. It's the brand new Differently Wired Club experience. In the club, you'll get personal support from me and other seasoned parent coaches, 6 live calls every month where you can connect and get your personal questions answered, the opportunity to learn directly from authors and experts like I have on this show, monthly themes for getting specific and tactical, an exclusive private podcast feed, and the best, most generous community of parents. Seriously, these folks show up for themselves and each other, and that right there is really everything, because it's a daily reminder that we're not alone. Our kids aren't broken, and we have totally got this. The recently rebooted Differently Wired Club is on a brand new platform with its very own iOS and Android app. It is such a great space. However you learn, whatever your style, no matter the ages, genders, and neurodivergent profile of your children, the Differently Wired Club can help you cultivate the positive shifts you're hoping for. Join us today by going to tiltparenting.com/club. That's tiltparenting.com/club. I hope to see you on the inside.
If you're a parent, I invite you to join us at the Mindful Mama podcast, where it's all about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. With sometimes hilarious and always thought-provoking experts and friends, at Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have. And when you have calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm Hunter Clark Fields, and I can't wait to see you there. Listen in to the Mindful Mama podcast.
Just to circle back to the Pokemon Go, yeah, as we're recording this, it's really just in the past week blown up to be this huge phenomenon. And every weekend I send my husband and son out. I just kind of kick them out of the house because I need some time to myself in here. And they often will go for a walk in Vondel Park, which is kind of our central park. It's a huge city park. They'll take a notebook and they call it their idea walks. Well, this time, Darren came home and he said, hey, we played Pokemon Go, and they had a blast. They were out there for hours in the park finding Pokemon. So my son is very screen focused when he's at home. So I'm also not sure how I feel about this yet in terms of the blending with the outdoor time, but I'll be very curious to see how that game kind of develops and how it's being used. I'm just reading articles every day on all sides of the conversation. So it's kind of an interesting phenomenon.
It is. I'm dragging my heels a little longer. My daughter's already begging, but I'm dragging my heels, kind of saying, I just want to do a little more reading and watch it over a little time. Well, and then before there was Pokemon Go, families might want to go looking at geocaching.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a cell phone, it's got a GPS on it. You can geocache with that. And you go to an online website and it gives you locations of caches near you, and you have to go find them wherever they are. Some of them are in cities, a lot of them are in city parks. They're in more nature areas. And it's kind of fun to be able to bag it, and say, I found this cache. You can go online and log that you found it. Some of them, if they're not the micro caches, don't have this, but the bigger ones, they have a little logbook. You can actually sign your name in the logbook, and you can leave some little teensy-tiny gifty thing and take one back out for yourself. And so it's a bit of a treasure hunt to it. That's one we've done with some of our older kids. We haven't really done that with Anna, but we've done it with older kids.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good tip. And I know that I do know some families who geocache, and that's become kind of their whole family weekend activity. And when they travel, it's something you can do all over the world. It's really cool. So before we say goodbye, I'm just have to ask, what is next for you? Do you have your next big hike picked out, or dates or scheduled?
Yes and no. Right now, what we're doing is, for the summer, we are actually living in our RV in an RV park. So Daddy's working during the week. He comes and joins us on the weekends. But it was a way to try to say, can we live in a city with lots of people, but be in a more nature area? So we're doing that right now. And the month of September, we're driving the RV down to Texas, so across the country. And I'm going to live in an RV park down there that's right on a river. So opportunities for a few different kinds of outdoor things. But also that's where my 2 grandbabies are. So one of them is brand new. So we're going to go play with my grandbabies, her nieces. And then when we get back in the end of September, we are planning at least 2 weeks. It depends on the weather. We may be able to stretch it to 4 weeks back on the Appalachian Trail. We'll be needing to go further south, so it's a little warmer. But yeah, we're going to be going back on the trail again this fall and do another section. She's excited. The section we're going to include has wild horses. And apparently if you try to move towards them, they run away. But if you stand real still or sit real still, they will eventually come up right around you and kind of check you out. And they apparently if you're real sweaty, they try to lick your arms. I'm not sure I want that, but she thinks that sounds cool. But yeah, that's our next adventure that's coming.
Oh, that sounds awesome. And just to clarify for listeners, you are homeschooling Anna, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Some parents might be like, wait, how are you getting all this time out of school? So that's part of your educational experience.
Yes. And so while we're on the trail, we add in, educational academic things on the trail. For example, we take my Kindle and we have a whole number of different poets that write outdoor poetry. And so we read those to each other, and she has been memorizing all kinds of poetry when we're out on the trail. And then, as you said, the science things, she can look at some of the biology sorts of things of where we are. So we've pulled in academics while we're out there. And then when we come back home, that's when we really kind of focus down on the math and the sorts of academics that don't work so well when you're hiking.
Right. And then lastly, do you keep a blog, or is there somewhere where listeners who want to kind of follow along with what you're up to can do that?
Yes, I blog on WordPress. And so I keep a blog on, the address is www.thebigepic.wordpress.com. And I post once or twice a week, and it's all about the various adventures that we are taking and doing, with lots of photos, because I like to take photographs. So yeah, I would love to have anybody connect there. And if anybody wanted to kind of talk more about things that we do, I love dialoguing with other parents, and feel free to leave a message in the comments in the blog, and we could take it offline and email directly back and forth if any parents wanted to do that.
Fantastic. Thank you. I look forward to checking out your blog as well. And thank you so much for just taking the time to be a part of this podcast and sharing your story with us. It's just been fascinating, and I look forward to following your adventures in the fall.
Great. Thanks, Debbie. It's been fun to talk.
Thank you so much for listening to the Tilt Parenting Podcast. To learn more about Jill and see the show notes for this episode, visit www.tiltparenting.com/session17. And if you know of other parents raising unique kids who would connect with our mission, enjoy listening to our podcast, and be a part of the Tilt community, we invite you to help us spread the word. And if you're not already following us on Facebook, please like our page at facebook.com/tiltparenting. We do our best to curate the best articles we can find that inform, support, and inspire the important work we're all doing as parents of differently wired kids. We'd love for you to be a part of the conversation. Thanks again for listening. For more information on Tilt and to sign up for our community, visit tiltparenting.com.
Hey, are you a parent of a teenager? Are you feeling overwhelmed about how to be what they need while also holding limits and boundaries that keep them safe? Are you tired of conversations that negate how messy this season of parenting is? Well, I've got you. My name is Casey O'Rourke. I am a positive discipline trainer, parent coach, and the host of the Joyful Courage podcast. Every week, I come to you with an interview digging into tough topics with experts I trust and solo shows that go deep into the personal growth and mindset needed to raise teens in a way that grows them into confident, capable young people. I am not afraid of getting real about the intersection of conscious parenting and the teen years, while also bringing in vulnerability, humor, and lightness. I'm walking the path with you and honored to serve. Listen to Joyful Courage on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume podcasts.